Call this meeting to order. This is a budget workshop, fiscal year 22-23. Today's date is July 12th, 2022. If everybody please stand for an invocation and pledge. Heavenly Father, we thank you for your many blessings. We pray that you continue to bless this community and this great city. Please guide and direct this commission as we work through the budget process to make our city better. In your name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Take it away, Al.
And here's Commissioner Roebuck. Okay, so tonight we'll finish off the enterprise funds, water, sewer, solid waste, stormwater, airport, and then just kind of some of our working funds, the pension funds, we'll review those, and the internal funds, health insurance, work comp, risk management, and fleet services. And then that rounds out the entire budget. We'll start off with water. So water continues to just hang in there, not doing too bad with our cash reserve. Still reasonable. A little, maybe double our required reserve, so that's a good thing. We are recommending this year a rate increase for the following basically because we're two reasons. We're way below market value on our water rates. And two, we are starting to get some capital needs that do need attention, and those basically come in the form of water main changeout. So we are recommending a 10% water increase. What the 10% water increase looks like is we go up to typical usage is I'm trying to figure out which one is the pointer button. Not that one. It's that one. Is about somewhere, for a normal family, somewhere between 7,500 and 10,000 gallons a month. So this is with the increase, and here you see the averages. So, a high is over here at Howey, a low is 14 Claremont, and then Mineola 17. So at 21, we're right. I don't know what the average is on that, but we're still probably at or below an average for the region. We go, what's that?
The average is down there, yeah.
There we go. The average is on the bottom. So average is so we're still $7 below average, and the high at 53. So we're still in a very competitive range here on water, even with the 10% increase. And that just continues some more. The commercial, the same. We're still showing very competitive here on commercial usage with your averages here and our increases. So commercial's actually even cheaper than the residential.
Well, we're just way too low. Especially on actually on all of it. Well, I assume this is not, I assume you can treat these rates differently, like they're not like you have to do one or the other.
I don't have a good answer for you on the matrix of where the water rate should be as far as commercial subsidizing residential or vice versa. I will tell you one of the things that we are looking into, not totally different than that, is having a more penal use system. So the more you use, the higher you go. We have that structure. St. John's has kind of put us on notice long ago that we need to address that. So although we are doing the 10%, Cliff has been tasked with figuring out if we need to not just change each structure 10%, but significantly increase those higher use structures. You have about 4 structures in your tiers of rates. Your base rate, your 0 to 8, 6,000, 6 to 12, 12 to 20, 20 to 30, and then over 30,000 a month. So that's where I would be more concerned versus residential and commercial.
Could we get some data on how many customers fall into each of these categories?
We can get you that data. I don't have it tonight,
I know,
but I can get it for you.
Yeah, sorry, microphone. So I'm going to say that based on that, I might want to see the rates adjusted further, but I'm okay waiting to see that.
And can't believe I'm saying this, but with all the pressure on electrical rates, I mean, I think we should push these a little bit more too. I like your idea. I love the idea of the penalty with all the pressures on water in Florida.
So that's pretty much the rate structure. And there's our revenues. And then we break down into administration, treatment, reuse, and distribution numbers, and our capital projects. So we just visit the capital projects. About $1.7 million in capital projects, and I'll just say, kind of right off the bat, 1.4 of this are what I would call major projects. The water main project at 441, the widening project. The Stock Subdivision and Walmart Loop are changing out Main and making Main bigger, a truck. And then these projects down here, 275, well rehabilitation, elevated tank, water treatment replacements, and fire hydrant replacements. These are kind of our standard capital improvements every year.
Where does this leave the cash balance in the water fund?
We stay at that $8 million level.
8 million.
What's the required number?
About 2.5. Was that what I was
so
saying?
you've got a pretty big buffer there.
We got about $6 million.
But you technically need 4.5.
No, I said that out of the gate wrong. Back on the.
For the regular location, let's say go to 4 for the water.
Was our number 4.5 on the water meter? Yes. So what's the 400 to 400? Is that engineering number that you
Correct.
have?
So
in there?
right now-
So that's the design
Yes, sir.
number.
Yeah, FDOT's design is on hold. Once they finish their design, then we can finish our design. So the 300K is to finish.
So that's this is a design number, and these are water changeout.
Sir.
So with the 10%, does that shore up our cash looking towards the water lines movement on 441?
Yes.
That's okay.
Any other questions on water?
Go ahead, Jim.
Just, the chemical costs side, did y'all, I don't know, I was a little late, so I didn't know if, item 5280 or something, what, just, is huge.
Is that in treatment, sir?
I wrote it down as, it was on page maybe 330, maybe 352, can't read my writing. And it was, 5280 is what I wrote. And it just said, I made a note about the chemical side, just the,
What page?
I think, sir, I think you're looking at wastewater.
that's in wastewater? Okay. I just didn't get my book out. 332 maybe?
That's a turnpike. Is that this one?
Yeah, I mean, it just,
You want me to jump to that right now?
you said you were going to wastewater, so
we'll
that's
come back.
good.
So let's go right to wastewater.
But I was just looking at cost of water because, I mean,
No, so the specific line you picked out, and that was the treatment chemical, the turnpike wastewater treatment facility, and we jumped from that 112 this year to 723. So it's twofold is the expansion of the plant. But
Doubling the
embedded
size.
in that is about a $500,000 increase in the deodorant for the turnpike facility. And
That's the number going forward.
it's upwards of 750,000 that you'd be looking at a year.
And when you say deodorant, this is a change in treatment process that the new plant requires? Or
Okay, so so let's jump right into that issue. A little bit out of order there, but here's with the situation at the Turnpike plant, the biggest ingredient they're changing. So whether we were did a deal with the villages or not, the issue is the residential development that is being put up against the plant. And long story short, we have an odor issue. Some of that odor some of it is our existing odor, and a lot of it, the existing odor issue is a village odor. The reason being, the village's system is newer, so they have a lot less I&I infiltration. So in our older system, we get you use the facilities, it goes through an older system where you have inflow and infiltration. So as that wastewater is coming through older pipes on our side, on our part of the system, you kind of get pre-treatment of the wastewater before it hits your plant. And that brings down the BOD level. BOD is the bad stuff that's in your wastewater, and also the stinky stuff. On the village's side, you have a higher concentrated wastewater. Wastewater in newer pipes, less I&I, higher BOD, higher stink. So by the time that hits the head wall at the plant, we have more of an odor issue. So there's two ways that we need to tackle the odor issue for obvious reasons. We can't have a stinky plant next to our new village's residents. And that issue was probably going to happen one way or another. So in short, two ways that we want to tackle this. First is they're going to start selling houses in August. People will start living there September, October, and we don't want odor issues. So way number one is there is a chemical that we've been researching where we will take the chemical, put it in the headworks at the plant, also put it in manholes and lift stations on our side and their side. Probably about a 2-to-1 kind of ratio where on our older side, we'll put some chemical and focus kind of for every 1 cup, 2 cups on the newer system. That will tackle the odor. We're hoping that will fix the odor in the short term. Long term is a different system and some components and different aeration and these type of things. So when we hit the expansion, we will weave in an odor component to try to have a long-term capital improvement that will be weaved in to the expansion issues, different pumps and aeration chambers and things that will help with the odor on a long-term basis, which then we hope to cut back on the chemical side of it.
So is this something they missed on the design where they should have built in a system?
I think that's probably reasonable. I think that's probably reasonable. We didn't anticipate that their BOD was going to be so much higher than ours. So treatment on villages wastewater is a little bit more intense.
It's just a little disappointing from the design, not staff, but the design firm, because this is all they do, and I'm sure every other new subdivision is like the same thing. You think that?
I don't. I think we just I think this is an us miss. When we brought on the villages, we just didn't anticipate their BOD being so much higher than ours. And even on new subdivisions, when we have subdivisions, you're still coming back through major trunk lines and lift stations and a lot more apparatus where some of that's breaking down. So maybe and that's why I say we can't totally pin it on the villages because we have new issues too. So maybe, in Jimmy's neighborhood where you're coming through a lot of older stuff, it's getting mixed down. In Jay's neighborhood, in newer subdivisions, probably there's some little stinkier there because it's not quite honest. But then the south side where we got new stuff is still hitting some old pipes. So long story short, I can't say we don't have odor issues. We have some. We do think the villages has more. And frankly, we missed that when we did the capacity agreement with them to treat the wastewater.
Lesson learned. Expensive.
And no chance of any economic help on this from our partner in the villages?
We're talking about it. We're talking about it. There might be some, but not yet. There's been no yes. We're still kind of live within the means of the contract. We're still within our budget parameters. We still have the right to increase rates, and they have to pay that bulk rate as well. So I'm not there quite yet, but it's been talked about a little bit.
So are they making their new residents realize that they are living next to a sewer plant?
I sure hope so. That's incumbent on them.
Canal Street been stank for 40 years, and so maybe throw some chemicals over there every now and then.
That's the plan. So that's the biggest jump in that chemical budget. So there is some operation, some expansion issues, but the lion's share of that increase is fighting the odor issue. The other thing, while we're in sewer, the other thing I'll just point out, the big change in there is the addition of the $2.17 million for the debt payment. So the good thing about the sewer fund is those are your two big increases, is that chemical and the debt payment. Several good capital projects here, changing out the force main on South 27. That's going from that was from Singletary Park-ish down to, am I starting right? Down to
In between Plantation and Arlington Ridge, running from 27 up to Rogers Park through the new power easement.
Okay, and then the lift station is the big lift station number 72, which is at the intersection of 48 and 27-ish. So that's a pretty strategic lift station that we need to focus on. And then and fixing old clay pipe. And then most of these kind of things are pretty standard stuff. But the good news in solid waste fund is there's a lot of cash in solid waste. So the rate structure is reasonably healthy. There's good cash volumes in solid waste, which will help us with and this number is pretty much the reason why we said let's shift that ARP money out, because the sewer fund's reasonably solid.
So on that, it's been trending down though. We made a lot of money in 2019, 2020, and then now we've got a slightly negative operating income in there. I guess that means next year you're going to see a rate increase. You can't do that forever.
Plant expansion.
Well, that shouldn't be in your operating number.
It wasn't completely funded with debt. There was some that came out of the fund.
But shouldn't
It
the
should go
plan
into
expansion
capital,
all be
yeah.
in your capital
You're right
project
on
number?
that, yeah.
Yeah, it wouldn't be in your operating
You're right.
appropriations. And it's just, it's okay, obviously, given the cash balance, but because 91,000 loss, operating income
Right.
loss, but that you can't do that indefinitely.
Yeah, that's true.
And I'm assuming your operating expenses are going to continue to probably increase over time.
And which should be offset too with that increase in revenue from the villages.
So maybe it's just a timing issue for a year.
I think it's something we need to watch.
All right.
I think it's something we need to watch. I'm not ready to say raise rates here because we've been doing a lot of. I also didn't want to, with levels of increase, economic issues, the number of things we're doing with taxes, with electric, with water, and I didn't want to recommend the same in wastewater.
All the more reason to raise our water rates.
And you guys thought that's the heartbeat of wastewater. So that's the heartbeat of wastewater fund. If y'all have any other questions there. Solid waste is it continues. It's not real big, but it continues to be pretty healthy. It sits on nice cash reserve. We are able to bring some enterprise fund transfers over to help us with capital improvements. The big thing that we'll bring to your attention in solid waste, the big thing that we'll bring to your attention in solid waste is this year we are going to recommend to you to stop recycling. We had this discussion. I think Commissioner Roebuck brought this up first year he was on the commission. But a couple of reasons to stop recycling. One, we can save about $150,000. And two, even if we stop recycling, we will still meet our requirement from the state to recycle because all of our materials go to the incinerator where it's then burned and turned into electricity, so we don't lose out on any recycling points. We realize that probably we'll need to do some educational campaigns on this, but at the end of the day, what it will do for us is not only save us money, it helps us with staffing. I believe that we're down 2 or 3 employees right now, so instead of needing 2 or 3 employees, I'll only need 1 or 2. Nobody loses job with nobody loses. I thought I said that in the negative, but nobody loses jobs. Nobody's rates go down. And in fact, this is really coming from the Solid Waste Department recommendation, saying we really don't need to do this. So no calling back everybody's yellow bin. You know, and we'll tell everybody if you still want to separate your recyclables, go do it. Or if you want to put trash in your recycling bin, go do it. It frees up trucks for us. Now we still need to buy a truck, but the existing trucks, even though we do have some designated recycling trucks, we can shift them over to trash trucks, and it gives us good backups because kind of like fire engines, you know, if a trash truck's not leaking oil, it ain't working. So we just have a lot of maintenance issues there with trucks, which is typical. So it gives us more equipment to rotate around. And so there you see down there at the bottom of the screen are the numbers.
And so I brought this up, and because I remember Commissioner Dennison laughed at me, and because I made the point, and it's not about just the money; it's more environmentally friendly because all of our trash is recycled, and you take the giant polluting trash truck off the road. So if you actually care about emissions, you're significantly reducing them by doing this, and that's where the education component comes in. Is we're not stopping recycling. Right. We recycle all of our trash. We're going to actually put out less emissions by taking a big truck off the road.
But we do need to educate the community. Yeah. There's going to be pushback on this and concerns on that if we don't educate the community properly.
The only community we know for certain that is stopping is Mount Dora. They haven't recycled. They stopped 2 years ago.
Mount Dora did.
Wow. Well, if they didn't have a revolt, we'd probably be okay.
Yeah. You know, so I think I'm not going to say you're on the bleeding edge on this one, but it's a move that makes financial sense, and really it makes environmental sense. So even if we do get the revolt, I think we can put together. You know, we'll have Cliff and Steve doing cameos, and we'll get Lakefront and TV involved, and you know, as long as you all support this, we'll get out now and start the advertising campaigns that affect, and we'll pick dates certain. I would say, you know, even though we approve the budget in September 1, it's looking like you guys, just from your reaction here, are on board with this. So maybe in August, we officially do a resolution that says we're going to stop. And then even though it's approved in the budget in September, that just gives us an extra 30 days, gives us like a 60-day window to prep. Or maybe we want to do a reso in August that says we're stopping with the November 1 90-day window to get stuff out. I don't think you'll need that. Probably a 60-day window is enough with October 1 start date, and by the end of August and September we can really get the word out and the message out. Right. It should really be seamless for the customers.
It's not going to matter. They can put it in a recycling bin. You're going to put it in the same trash can anyway, so it don't really matter. They're going to put it in, separate it, and we're just going to pick it up and put it in the trash can.
Yes.
Yeah, but isn't picking up those recycling bins, that's much more labor intensive than just running the truck up and dumping I think we ought to, if we're going to do this, the recycling bins need to go. It's going to take your guys longer to mess with the route.
We really think it all works the same because we have the automated trucks that come around and pick up the truck and then throw it.
And they pick up the bin
and they throw it. No, they throw it in the back of the truck. So basically, all the trucks work the same, whether it's trash or recycling. This guy is a trash truck. This guy is a recycling truck. And so this truck now will be able to pick up trash. And so if you just start putting trash in your recycling bin, if I pick up one, I'm going to just pick up the other one and throw it in the back, bring it to Covanta, where it's all. So we really don't need to get rid of the carts.
Do they do it on the same day, recycle the same day as your regular trash pickup? So it's like, so it wouldn't even matter.
Yeah, so I'm picking both up anyway.
Yeah.
but I got the same amount of crews. So now I can, if I'm at your house and I'm picking up 2 barrels anyway, I come by with 1 truck, I pick up 1, dump it in, and then a couple hours later, a different truck comes and dumps it in. So now I'll just go dump, dump.
I don't want to get bogged down here, but is it a big deal burning more plastic?
No.
Not a big deal environmentally?
No, and that's because of the BTU that they burn at the incinerator. So it's all converted into energy. The heat goes into I know they use the heat to spin the.
Covanta has like a whole thing, educational thing on their website that talks about how they do it all. It was pretty interesting.
So solid waste. Stormwater, pretty much the same with the priority projects this year being curbs and gutters. The Center Street Improvement Project, which is a flood-prone area that we wanted to address, and Lake Robin Hood Improvement. Is that a dredging project, Lake Robin Hood?
No, Lake Robin Hood, so what we're doing is we're going to create 2 dry retention ponds to pre-treat this runoff before it goes into Lake Robin Hood to get us some more EMAP credits.
You guys, any questions there in stormwater? Okay, I'm going to keep going. Well, the going's good here. Airport. Airport remains pretty much the same. So let me jump to the capital projects there. Our number 1 priority continues to be doing the hangars. We anticipate about a $1.2 million grant coming in from it's FDOT, which will go towards hangars. We probably think that that's only going to get 1 building. We've got, 2 or 3 under design?
There's 4 buildings total in the design. There's the first round of grant funds should probably go to all the utility relocation, stormwater fund, and taxiway infrastructure.
So in the short version is not enough grant money to cover as many of the hangars that we want, but we'll have them all designed. So in the hopper was the fuel farm project, and what we're hoping is that we'll do some more inspections on the existing tanks. If they're good, we can kick that project down the road and then move that money towards hangar construction, kind of to be determined. The other project this is actually a stormwater master plan, which the FDOT/FAA wants us to do, and we're to fix some of our stormwater flooding issues out there and to upgrade. Which taxiway is that?
The taxiway taxi lane is Alpha 1, Alpha 2, Alpha 3 connectors, taxiway Delta relocation, and possibly the FAA is saying that they will also incorporate realignment of Alpha.
Are we transferring $200,000 from stormwater to pay for that, or are you
No, that's
proposing?
airport money. This is exclusive of the stormwater fund.
Why is that? Why wouldn't stormwater be paying for the stormwater improvement?
Do you think?
The last stormwater master plan at the airport was done in 2000.
Does the airport pay stormwater fee?
They do. The individual attendant.
And that's I'm just wondering. I mean, I know we talk about stormwater building up cash, and if fees are getting paid in by the users from the airport, then the regular stormwater should be paying for stormwater projects.
Let us take a look at that. We'll come back to you
Okay.
on that. Any questions on the airport? Pensions. We have the 3 pensions. In short, all the pensions are performing well. I don't know if I want to say the word that way. They're performing well. I will say all pensions are in good financial condition in terms of total liability amounts. The police fund is sitting around 90% funded. The fire fund is about 86% funded. General employees fund is 97% fund. I'm still a little old school here. The rule of thumb is you want to be 75% funded in your pension funds, and so those are all healthy numbers. there's been legislation talked about and different things talked about where you have your pension funds at 100%. And I'll tell you, I think that is just too conservative. And at the end of the day, that's going to cost taxpayers and the funding to city. Because you're, especially on the police and fire side, you're not going to get increased state funding, and you're really not going to get more money out of employees, and because that's a collective bargaining issue. And just, I think the three components just to keep in mind that make up the funds on the police and fire, we've got state funding from police. The state funding comes from a tax you pay on your cell bills. So your cell phone bill goes into the state. The state then breaks that down over a giant formula they have to fund police retirement plans. So then that's mixed with 5% from the employees, and the city picks up the rest of that cost, and we're paying about 10.25% in the police fund, and that's on salaries. So you put on, and we'll have a slide on that in a second. Fire is the same kind of matrix, except instead of cell phones, you pay a tax on your home insurance. There's a portion of that goes to the state, and then that goes back to fund fire, EMS, retirement plans, plus the 5% from collective bargaining, and then the city picks up the remainder of that, and we're paying about 31% of salaries. Typically, I think if you look across the state, police pension funds, typically anywhere between 18 to 25% of salaries you'll see municipalities and local governments pay. So actually our 10.25 is pretty good. And fire, you'll see anywhere from 30 to 40. So our 33-ish is actually reasonable. And then the general employee fund is everybody else who was employed by the city prior to 2008, anybody hired prior to January 1. It's in there somewhere, but basically the long story short there, you remember this is the closed fund. So if you were it was September 30th, 2008. Okay, so let's use, September 30, 2008. All employees hired prior to that date were members of the fund. This fund has been closed. We closed that back in the second Great Recession, and then started the deferred comp plans for all general employees. And that fund remains about 97% funded. So about $2.2 million is going into the police pension fund each year, and there's your numbers. So that actually went down this year to 10%, just a tick over 10%. There's your contribution levels there. The big jump you see that we kicked in from 16 to 17, that was kind of the first big change that we did in police compensation. You probably see a little bit of that coming again in the future. Fire, about $1.7 million goes into the fund. This fund went up a little bit from 31.7 to 32.25. That's mapping out our contributions. And then the general employees fund at 3.2. And that's kind of slow. Our contribution levels there are kind of about roughly the same. Any questions on the pension funds?
So why did fire go up and police down? I mean, you're managing that, right? That's a managing.
No, that probably just the actuarial reports and different investments. Ultimately, the pension boards that you appoint manage that, and then we have the actuarials and the investment guys. Probably just a little bit different portfolio mix.
Yeah, I was a little confused about that too, because the fire fund actually did the best. They returned like almost 20% last year, and the other funds returned like 10%, but their percentage went up.
I don't know.
Yeah, so I don't know if we could like maybe could we ask our pension people?
We can get your.
Yeah, and I know there's a lot more that goes into it. I just don't understand that.
And it could be, and it could be people in and out. Could be a lot of different things.
Yeah.
So retirees and that kind of stuff can affect that number. So we'll get a better.
It's just a little concerning because probably next year you're going to have negative returns.
Yeah, I think you can see both that 10 and a quarter and that 32 go up. And it's really because on the police side, we've got some openings, so that might help that. So, and that could be another reason why you see, because police has maintained more openings. So, a bunch of stuff goes in that number, but we'll get you a better one. The internal funds, first the health insurance fund. Here, long story short on the health insurance fund, and I don't want to be overly rosy because we've been crying about this fund. We've made some changes, and whether people are starting to get healthy, whether the changes we've made, or whether it's a collection above, the retirees leaving the plan. So last year, sweating bullets, and we made the big changes. I will tell you from October, November, December, and the magic number is roughly, we budgeted the $7.2 million in claims. So that includes, those are the claims from employees, and that covers medical bills as well as the pharmaceutical. So 7.2 is the magic number divided by 12. So the magic number we want is, if I told you 650, I was wrong. It's 486 is the magic number. So we want, so to be on budget, our claims need to be about $486,000 a month. My first few months, I started off in October at Whistling Dixie at 453, and then I started sweating bullets because then I went 601, 622, 725, and 676, and so now I'm crying. But then the last 4 months, we're back down in the low 400s. So I'll tell you, as of June, we're about $262,000 over budget, but we're now on a good trend. So with that, we're just going to say, be tight and see where this goes. So if that number gets better, then that projected reserve number will stay about the same, and hopefully the trend stays good. We can tell you our participation at the health clinic has been good since changing. The trend is positive, so I would just sit tight right now. So those are your claim numbers that we all took. So I gave that to you in brief. And then the workers' compensation fund, ugly. But remember, because this is where we took the $1 million to stick it in to prop up the health insurance fund. But what we did on this one, so note this number, this is where we increased our workers' compensation payments across the board in the city so that we could get extra cash to get this number up. So the difference between this 672 and this, call it 1.2, is the extra money we're charging ourselves to put that money and build that reserve back up. Then the risk management fund, which we got rid of. And then we'll talk about fleet, and this is the last fund of the evening, I think.
Question.
You guys want to talk about insurance before we go to fleet?
Why do we overcharge ourselves for work comp and undercharge ourselves for health insurance? Why wouldn't we just increase what we're paying on health insurance to get a more accurate portrayal of where the risk is actually coming? Because now it makes it seem like we're doing a bad job managing work comp and a good job managing health insurance, or a okay job. It just seems like there's not a reason to do that.
I think at the end of the day, with the health insurance, what we want to do is continue to provide a good benefit.
I get that, but why wouldn't the city add just in the budget? I'm not talking about what employees pay, but why wouldn't the city increase our health insurance premium in the budget line and then transfer the money into work comp, so you have an accurate portrayal of what health insurance is costing us? Because right now you don't. Right now it shows that we're spending the money on work comp, and we're not. The health insurance should be transfer money back to work comp, not work comp overcharging and building it up.
We're doing that though because it's more expensive on the healthcare side, right? So if I increase what I'm paying myself on health insurance, then we got to change the rates. The family, the employee only.
Why do you have to change
that
the
kind of
rates?
stuff.
No, we could go increase the rates that the city pays in for each person on
Yeah.
that side. I think when we took the $1 million, we didn't expect like the actual report to come in, and we'd have required, if you go back to that graph, the reserve is higher than we anticipated. So I think we are incredibly low on our workers' comp rates, what we charged ourselves, so we haven't adjusted those for years.
Well, I would say you're not incredibly low
I see
because
what
your history supports those
Yeah,
rates, those low rates.
If you go back and collect more health insurance money, you've got to go back and you've got to adjust that rate structure. And there's the 4-tiered rate structure: employee only, employee spouse, employee child, and the family structure. And roughly,
This is more complex.
And off the top of my head, the employee total all-in cost is $600 a month. The employee only is like $1,200 a month. Employee spouse is like $1,300 a month, and family is like $1,700 a month. Okay, so then we take that down with the benefit, and the employees pay, what are we paying now, $50 a paycheck or $25 a paycheck? That's the employee's contribution, and now we're picking up the gap from that 50. So we're at a minimum picking up $450.
Yep.
An employee-ish. I'm using the wrong number.
Yep. And what I'm saying is those rates are artificially low.
And so here's, let me give you, I'm just going to give you the numbers and not tell you what the fund it is. And so it's 871, 1230, 1265, and then 1600. So the employees are kicking in $50 a month on that, and then the employees pick up the difference between the employee only, or we split the difference on the delta between the employee coverage and the child, spouse, and family coverage.
Right.
So if you increase that number to get more money in the fund, you have to go back to the employees and kick up their
No, you don't.
contribution.
No, we didn't.
No, you don't. That's a choice you make or don't make.
Let me finish.
Okay, you don't do that.
Or B, the city's got to throw it in.
Yep.
Okay?
Which is what I think.
So
Which is
then
what I'm
we
suggesting.
throw it in, and my guess is going to be, and we put pencil to paper to answer your question, didn't anticipate it, is that increasing that rate will probably cost each of those funds more than just going back in to picking up the health,
Well, at the end of the day, it's going to cost the city the same amount of money. I mean, to move $1 million, you can't. I mean, it's the same dollar figure.
It just
I get how you're saying it.
just move it from workers' comp over to health insurance and just increase the city's contribution and leave the employee rate alone. I think
Is that what you really?
That is
Yes,
what
yes.
I'm saying, because I think you're making it look like health insurance isn't costing the city what it is, and because you're doing great on work comp, and you jacked up the rates by double because you want to move money to health insurance. Well, your work comp history didn't change. You didn't all of a sudden become more risky from a work comp standpoint.
I see where you're headed.
And I just think, like, long term, like, if you got to do it for a year, like, I'm not going to live or die by this.
Right.
But I just worry that it sets a bad precedent of showing that health insurance is costing the city less than it really is. And I think when you look holistically for, like, what benefits we're providing, it's important to know what the real number is.
You're trying to get the transparency to show the employees that what we're picking up on their behalf.
Yeah.
Then the only thing that and it's not, I don't want to say only, we did, I think, a good job of demonstrating to the employees what we're picking up when we changed that benefit level,
Yep.
because we went back and we pulled out the trends, we pulled out the charts, we showed them where we were taking the money from, and those type of things.
Yeah. I'm not going to live and die by it. I just think it's a bad, you don't want to keep doing this every year.
And
Because
I don't-
and having work comp.
I don't want to be obtuse, but at the end of the day, fighting that fight with the employees is a difficult one, and whether I'm taking it out of that fund or the health insurance fund.
I like to see what things cost. And right now, you can't see what health insurance costs the city.
Other than that $1 million.
Yeah, the million is
But I'm okay. I won't live and die by this, but you shouldn't do it every year.
no. Hopefully not next year. I mean,
If you do,
we're
you
hoping
do,
to drop
you
it
do,
back
So
down,
once you get $1 million,
back in there.
then we don't do this next
Yeah,
year.
I mean, the plan would be that it should be enough to cover the reserve, and we'll be
Because
back.
there's the minimum.
Yeah, that's all we're trying to do.
That's a state minimum
Yeah.
$1 million fluff.
Yeah.
60 days is the number that the state requires for your work comp fund.
And we really thought we'd be better, honestly, when we transferred the money, and just the reserve ended up being higher than we thought. So
the good news is the insurance claims in 2021 were bad, but the other 3 years are good. So that was an unusual year. We were afraid that was a trend. It was an unusual year.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, based what 1 year's projected, but at least they came back down in 21-22, consistent with 19-20.
Okay, so the fleet fund. Let me just jump to this crazy chart. We show you this every year. This is kind of the pie chart on the blue line, or the green line represents cash, how much money's in the fund. And each year we say, man, if we spend, then we're not going to have any money. And we talked about this a little bit. In the general fund, we take all the cars, the depreciated values to get the lease payment, put all that together, and that's X. And then we charge ourselves 75% of X, which banks the cash in the fleet fund to buy equipment. And the long story short, what we have found now, probably since about my first budget year, which was it 14 or 15, is if we keep our spending around the $1.5 million number a year, then the fleet reserve, we're not digging into it too bad, and we maintain. Where's the chart? Where's the pie? Is the pie chart not in there? Oh, the pie chart's not in there because it's right there. And we keep in the fleet from, what's it, $3 million? So the happy number is stay around $1.5 million of purchases a year. Then put it against the matrix that we do. So we've got the point system on what cars we're going to change out. So now, having said stay at $1.5 million a year, what are we doing this year? 2.4. Why are we doing 2.4? It's the fire department. I thought Joe took the night off. No, but three.
Is that why he's over in the corner by himself?
It is the fire department, but so let me just start off right there. But the good thing, so the bad news is that engine almost, not quite, without the engine, we're now at 1.7-ish. So that's a decent number. So that's the bad part. The good part is we're in pretty good shape after this purchase of this truck on all our engines. So that gives us pretty much a new truck at every department with an older one as a backup, with the exception of the last big item that we have for the next, say, 15-year window is the ladder truck. So where Chief is at on that is he thinks that he may be able to get a grant. Ladder truck is going to cost somewhere between $1 million, $1.2 million. We think we'll be able to get a grant for it, which leaves us a 10% cost. So maybe somewhere around $100,000, $200,000. We didn't put that in the budget, but if Chief is able to get that grant, I'm going to be back to you saying, go get your cash from the fleet fund, buy that ladder truck with 10% versus 100% cost. Then once the ladder truck is in there, bam. That's a big expense for the next 15 years that's out of that chart. The other big items in there are the bucket trucks. The good thing, too, about the bucket trucks, Brad will tell you it's horrible, I'll tell you it's good, is the wait time for the bucket trucks. So we can kind of stick it in there. The cash builds a little bit because the trucks are in a lag. And then we do need one more trash truck. So of the 2.4, you got 3, 6, and 7. So there's over, what's that, 13? That's 13.6. That's 1.6. So that's a little over half in about 4 vehicles. And then the rest of this is kind of just, we needed police cars. So that's the list.
What if you're unable to get the grant for the ladder truck?
Then me and Joe are probably going to be fighting, and I'll be saying, push it off, push it off, push it off. And Joe will ask for it, and I'll keep cutting it until you guys tell me to listen to Joe.
Just come back next year. You got 1.7, so that'd be.
I mean, that sounds horrible, but that's going to be my recommendation. I mean, I understand where Joe's at.
I didn't know what the life expectancy was of the truck, I guess was kind of part of my question.
How old is the line truck?
It's old, I remember. I thought we,
So it's older.
yeah, okay.
But I guess the correct way to say that is we don't have a good answer for you. That's an expensive piece of machinery.
We'll put it in our prayer at next meeting.
You know.
Get the grant. Get the grant.
Say an extra one tonight.
Get the grant.
All right. So I'm going to tell you that the grant option right now is reasonable to kick that can down the road, and we worry about that one later.
I'm just curious.
So Al, in your matrix, I know you charge it back to the different departments. So if you're saying 5 years, you're going to give $20,000 for a $100,000 truck. So year number 5 or 6, that truck or car is still in good shape. You don't buy a truck, right? You keep going.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And the payment stops, but then that's cash in there. And so, the departments always argue that they think they're getting ripped off. But the bottom line is, when you go back and you look at the data, okay, so there is a little push and shove in there. The electric department is a big giver into the fund, and if they don't buy a truck that year, they're helping planning and zoning buy Dan a new car, which, by the way, Dan doesn't have one. So there is some give and take in there. But over the long haul, everybody's getting what they're putting in.
And those prices may change. 5 years ago, what you've been paying $15,000 may be $20,000. And Brandon may not have adjusted that $5,000.
The system works and the system's justifiable.
It's supposed to get that increase, but with what we've seen, probably not.
Yeah.
That's the end of our presentation for you this evening.
All right.
Questions, comments from the commission?
Well, I just say good job to our new budget director. That's your title.
And I said, and so wrapping up too, I said it starting out because I knew we would forget at the end, but I think Brandy has just done a fantastic job on this. She's really taken a huge load, a little bit more each year. I even have listened to Brandy more, believe it or not.
Yay. All right, Al.
Helped Jim, and then the department heads have done a real good job preparing all this stuff too. So very happy with how the management team continues to perform when it comes to the budget.
Yeah, no, thank you, Brandy. You do a great job for the city.
Thank you.
Yeah, so a few positions in there, so I'm sure the departments have beaten Al down and got a few positions. So I can imagine those conversations. So kudos to you two, Al, and the departments for having to deal with Al and all his no's.
Is that it? Okay, meeting adjourned.